Alright, yo, wanted to record a quick video here going over uh, the kind of build and tree variation that I have figured out and thought I would publicly share with anybody else who is interested. So basically, this is a pretty standard like Deadeye tree or whatever. You could drop these nodes and have even less points, but it was like a level 34 point tree or whatever, level 30, and you can get up to 68% spell suppression with just these points. You can actually get 78% if you are using evasion, boots, helmet, and gloves as well. Get a jewel socket. You can drop some points and go down to like 53% or whatever. And with a normal amount of dexterity, if you're up at like 200 on a normal amount of gear or whatever, um, here you can also get like a couple other cool stuff depending on what you want. Here you can get 5% of evasion as extra armor, so depending on build, this will in late game end up giving you a decent amount of extra armor as a layer and Wing Dancer. You can have even less points, still get a pretty good amount of spell suppression, and then get the rest from just a couple rolls on gear, because the rolls on gear are actually pretty high. You can get 10, 15-ish, maybe even size 20. I'm not sure yet. I've only seen like tier 4-ish rolls of spell suppression on gear, but just even one or two extra rolls and normal amount of dex, this node itself will end up giving me about 15% on my build. And then you'll end up having like 75%, 70% from tree, maybe 60%, and then just getting 2 or 3 rolls on gear pretty much, and you'll be capped for a very small amount of points invested, and you also get dancer and armor and like dual side carry and some couple other cool stuff. So I'll show. This is my League Start character. This is the Corrupting Fever Gladiator. Shout out to Grimro. He kind of popularized it, I think, and introduced me to this build idea. I built this tree from scratch myself, but it ended up being pretty similar. I'm more used to playing Deadeye Raider type characters or whatever, and playing on this side of the tree. He went a route with like higher max res and armor and stuff like that, using determination. I wanted to go a evasion based route, partly due to this blood in the eyes node, 25% chance to hit of blind or whatever, and then I think we also get like 100% greased effective blind somehow. I forget how that works, but maybe I'm misremembering that. Anyway, so I built my tree a little bit differently. The pathing here at the start is just a little bit different, and then it's mostly the same going up this side, except we just skipped some of the armor nodes up here, things like that. We are grabbing the 2 reservation nodes up there. This node is just extra damage. We're not taking the other node yet. And then just jewel sockets, endurance charges, stuff like that. Here's the auras from your skills, and then obviously no cluster jewels yet on this tree. Here I went down, grabbed the frenzy charge. You can skip that if you want to. Then the difference is over here, where we basically did that cool pathing and then came up here, and then you could also path into here if you want to, and just getting some damage in there. Obviously the life total is pretty low on this tree, but we're skipping a bunch of like 6% nodes that you could get and things like that, so the life could go higher. Anyway, oh, and this is supposed to be unspec'd. Anyway, and then over here, we're getting those nodes, again, getting 5% of armor here. Here you can get the 10%, getting jewel there, and then here I went with Grace, 25% efficiency. So right now this is Corrupting Fever on a 5-link, Split Arrow on a 4-link. I have 1 level 3 Enlighten linked with Malevolence, Pride, and then we're using Grace, and this also gives us the availability of using Vol Grace if we want to. You can see here I'm sitting at a pretty decent amount of evasion rating there. We're skipping Warbanner for now. Can't afford it till later to fit in. And then Flesh and Stone, Herald of Purity. No Enlighten there, obviously. And then just like Vulnerability, Enduring Cry, Dash, whatever else you want to use for like manually casting stuff if you don't have like the ring yet or things like that. And this is also without flasks on. So once you activate just like a couple evasion flasks or whatever, you can jump up higher, obviously. Gear pretty basic. So we're using literally just a +1 bow, using regard, using like very, very starter level gear, pretty much. This is like less than 1x budget probably. Using the Circle of Guilt, the main thing I'm looking for here is the reduced reservation, and then either buff effect or the physical damage there is good. Loop of All, Magnate, that, and then either like 2 or 3 stat jewels with just like some damage, health, maybe resists in there, stuff like that. Amulet, the main important thing here before you get the focus amulet is Anointing Charisma, so that's like where most of your budget is going to be going to. These boots could be something else. Brine Rot Whalers still works just fine as a starter gear option. Slint gloves, you could also go with apothecary gloves and get some damage over time, or just do slightly less damage. If you're going those gloves, they don't have you won't get the 10% from this mastery. There's still some other good masteries in here, like 50% extra damage, preventing 2% of the damage, stuff like that, or you could just skip it. It's up to you. If you prioritize the damage over the evasion, and then just like basic resists life chest piece, and then the reservation of skills on here. The enchant, obviously not important starting out. So that's like the very starter level gear or whatever. Obviously the health is low, even though we're skipping life nodes and things like that. If while leveling, there's a couple tricky pieces I've noticed. So I transitioned to Corrupting Fever at level 23 with a bow, and I just leveled with it the whole way up into like yellow maps roughly right now. While leveling, this is pretty good. This would generate 2% of life, but I end up dropping that. And then this is tricky. So with Corrupting Fever, I don't have the focus mod yet, right? So I'm manually casting it at the start of maps, and then just using like a life flask or whatever to regain the health back, and then just keep up the buff. Using life tap on my split arrow and just casting it every so often when I do the map. If you take this 15% reduced life cost thing, you might actually struggle, especially if you're using the less duration link on Corrupting Fever. You will probably struggle and probably be unable to reliably keep up the Corrupting Fever buff by spending enough life. So you actually want to not spec that node if you can, so that you can more easily keep up the buff and you don't have to be casting as often. Because your life tap cast on Split Arrow will be spending more. Also, that's with Split Arrow again on a 4 link, so once you get more links on this, it'll cast more mana, and that won't be as big of a problem. But if you need that to like manually cast the Corrupting Fever, that works. Obviously, also, so this is giving me 70% from tree. I can path up in here and just grab a few extra nodes if I want to, and get up to like above 80%. This 5% of armor gives me about 1k armor right now in in-game gear. This can end up giving me to when I'll end up being about 10k armor. So that's just kind of a nice extra layer. You can skip that point for now if you want to. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, Wind Dancer's nice. This node on its own giving me like 15%. Also pretty nice. It doesn't hurt my evasion too much because we're getting a whole bunch of extra evasion from these nodes and these down here. And then we're using Grace Reservation Efficiency over there to fit that. And I think that's main points. Oh, and then obviously if you want to cap Spell Suppression, you can just get like Spell Suppression rolls on gear. They roll up to like 10, 15, maybe even as high as 20%. And so just 2 or 3 rolls on gear, and you can be capped at 100% Spell Suppression. So that's pretty nice. The budget here, obviously, allocating Charisma is required if you want to be able to fit All Grace. And you still have enough mana, 47 unreserved mana that I can manually cast Dash, Vulnerability, stuff like that. So yeah, that's the build, kind of a variation there using Evasion and Spell Suppression on the Corrupting Fever Gladiator. Again, this is like a level 83 free. Still has pretty good amount of like flexibility and extra points that you can path into here. Again, no cluster jewels obviously, so like the damage might be kind of low looking now, but you can obviously scale this up a lot more. It's a very, very beginner starter bow and things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm running with right now. Just thought I would put it out there in case anybody else wanted to play kind of this type of version, or just use that pretty good 30-point-ish pathing on this area of the tree for the spell suppression on whatever other build you're doing in like the Ranger Duelist area, or even Scion. Definitely pretty efficient points spent there as far as like what you're getting for what you're spending. Makes hitting spell suppression cap, I think, pretty easy, doable on most of the main 3 builds down here that path through this area of the tree. Anyway, that's all I got. Let me know if that helps anybody. Thanks for watching.